Today, we're going to talk a little bit about sidekicks. Now, DC tends to really love the idea of sidekicks, especially legacy type characters. Usually, your biggest heroes, especially members of the Justice League, they will always have someone under them that they are mentoring to become kind of the next them, or at the very least, a version of themselves that will one day be seen as big of a hero as some of the core members are. Since it seems it can be such an important piece to the DC universe, I thought today I'd go through a couple of characters that don't have sidekicks, who I personally believe should have sidekicks. These are characters who are old enough, smart enough, caring enough, or maybe just simply built up enough to become a mentor to a younger character. The first character we're starting with here is Nightwing. I think this is pretty self-explanatory, but I'll get into it just a little bit. Dick Grayson's time learning how to be a sidekick himself and Robin, learning all he knows from people like Batman and even Alfred, going off and being the leader of the Teen Titans, needing to lead people such as Starfire, Beast Boy, Cyborg, Raven, Donna Troy, and so on. This is someone who has had leadership skills and teaching skills since he was a child. There's even an argument to be made that Dick Grayson may have learned more about being a leader with his time with Batman from the sheer fact that Batman himself was not always that great of a leader with him. He might have learned what and what not to do alongside Batman when Batman chose to do things that maybe Dick Grayson wouldn't. Now, I don't necessarily know who he would be training and who his sidekick would be, but Nightwing could even have a potential of having a Robin sidekick of his own, or maybe his own original idea. Regardless, I do believe Nightwing to be one of the best leaders in DC Comics, and he, with a sidekick, would fare very well. Next, I have Powergirl / Supergirl. You choose who you want. Maybe you even choose both. Personally, for me, I've always preferred Powergirl over Supergirl, so I'm gonna go with her. Both Powergirl, Supergirl have learned a lot from Superman. Pretty much all they need to know and how to be a symbol of all heroes, how to be an idol to the world in a sense. I believe they have learned just as much from Superman the same way that maybe Nightwing has learned from Batman. However, the difference is it's probably been a little more stable when it comes to Superman's teachings than Batman's. Powergirl and Supergirl are two characters who would be able to look at maybe someone younger than them, someone who does need training, and be able to identify that this particular person had all the drive that I had when I was once young, and Superman took it upon himself to train me. Why can't I do it for this person now? Why can't I be that Superman figure to somebody else? And once again, it doesn't need to be someone in the Superman family. It doesn't need to be a Kryptonian. It can be any other original character that maybe Powergirl, Supergirl would decide to take under their wing. Regardless, learning what a good mentor does for someone who finally grows older and comes into their own heroship, basically, I believe they would have what it takes to do the same thing for someone underneath them. I also have Zatanna as someone who deserves a sidekick. Now, I know it all depends. There are some continuities where Zatanna is a little bit younger, where she is the sidekick herself, and then there are some continuities where she is the age of our main heroes, which is usually the Zatanna I prefer. Now, she does have a history or a past helping younger heroes come into their own, but she's never had a full-on straight-up sidekick of her own, not that I really remember. Given how powerful and knowledgeable and intelligent she is in the magical world, I think it would be a really great idea for her to have some sort of underling that she would be able to pass all of that knowledge off. Magic is by far an easy thing to understand, let alone perfect in any way, but something tells me Zatanna would be a perfect teacher for it. I could imagine Zatanna taking someone like Raven under her wing, or maybe even someone like Black Alice, who I've been saying for months once maybe deserves a little bit more of a popularity kick in the comic world. I believe that up there with John Constantine and Dr. Fate, Zatanna is up there when you need someone with magical expertise or magical output, magical powers. You need something magic done, she's your woman. And I don't see as to why she wouldn't be able to have a sidekick of her own. Next up, I have Cyborg, and once again, you can draw his connection down to the Teen Titans as well. The fact that these characters were once Teen Titans and have grown up to become adults, they do have a lot of history and a lot of training working with one another, being guided by maybe people a little bit older than them so that they can become their own main time hero themselves to pass that knowledge to someone younger. However, with Cyborg, this is also a guy who has spent time in the Justice League. Every single person that Cyborg tends to work with, he usually gets along with them pretty well. Cyborg has always reminded me of a character who is pretty damn stable for someone who is more robotic than he is human, yet he tends to be one of the most humanized characters in the DC universe. He has his head on straight. He could help pretty much anybody suffering through a physical image, the misunderstanding of their powers, not fitting into the world. Cyborg would be able to say, "Look at me. Look how I've made it work. I can help you make it work too." And whereas I do believe Cyborg is fit enough to have his own sidekick, I would even argue he's fit enough to mentor a bunch of younger heroes as time goes on, so he can help them maneuver this world the way he has done it himself. Next is Black Canary. Now, I know it's been seen that she mentored a lot of the younger heroes in Young Justice, and I think in the new continuity as of late, she also has a Red Canary sidekick, but I just feel like it's nothing too memorable. When I look at a character like Black Canary, I've always imagined someone who has funneled a fair share of her own students into becoming bigger time heroes, the way someone like Batman has. He has had a multitude of Robins and Batgirls at his disposal. I've always believed Black Canary should be that type of person herself. She has the caring and the understanding to do that type of job well, but in all honesty, the most important piece of it is her motherly aspects. But I think she just takes it to a whole nother level where you almost feel nurtured and protected by this woman. She's not going to be afraid to push you because she knows that your full potential is untapped and she can get to it. However, she's not going to be ruthless with you. She's not going to treat you like garbage, and she will always just in general be there for you. And I mean, in all honesty, considering she is represented by a bird, Black Canary, a Robin sidekick would be quite fitting for her. Maybe someone like a Stephanie Brown. Then I have Black Lightning. This character makes way too much sense, and I'm surprised that a sidekick to Black Lightning is not more of a popular idea than it has been. Now, he's one of the bigger DC characters that I'm not too knowledgeable of myself. I'm pretty sure his daughters have powers and he's probably mentored them to become who they've became, but nothing on the more so mainstream level. And that's really what I'm talking about here. I do believe that in comic books, him and Static Shock usually do get related to one another. I even think Black Lightning is an idol to Static, but they don't have any type of mentorship sidekick relationship. However, that could work. I mean, Black Lightning is a father, as we were just discussing. He's also a principal. If anybody is going to be able to understand how to mentor a student, it's gonna be him. Being a father and a family man, I think he does probably have a lot of good life lessons and life values he'd be able to offer to a sidekick of his choosing. And then having the power such as his, I'm sure that's something that wasn't really easy to get used to and probably found hard to control. I could 100% see him being able to take a student, someone like a Cyborg, where he could sit down and say, I know things are confusing right now. I know you don't feel the best. I know you may feel like there is no place for you in the world, but if I figured it out, you'll figure it out too, and I'll help you get to that point. If you want someone who's going to offer you a little bit of tough love, but all at the same time care for you and protect you, I think Black Lightning's going to be your guy. The next two I'm going to be mentioning here are controversial, which is exactly what I am going for a particular reason. First, we have Booster Gold, a celebrity status superhero who is a little too high and mighty and arrogant for his own good. I actually think bringing him down a level to mentor a student could be something he needs. Sometimes a really great story between student and master is when your master is someone who is not ready for this job, but has to change with the times and has to become a teacher to a student. Sometimes a really great story is when that particular master almost doesn't even feel like a master himself and doubts himself throughout the process of teaching a younger hero. And I think the situation with Booster Gold would start off as, yeah, of course I can teach this young kid. He wants to be like me. I'll teach him all he knows. We're gonna have a super fun, great time. But then as things start to get more serious, as maybe the threats around them become more dangerous, Booster Gold could potentially feel as if maybe he's taken on too much himself and maybe he's not the right mentor for a student. But you could mold the story in a way where the student realizes Booster Gold is not perfect by any means, but he wouldn't have it any other way because he is learning the best from being in the thick of it with someone like Booster Gold. Booster is unapologetically who he is, and I think that would help develop a younger hero underneath him to realize that sometimes that is who you need to be, and maybe that is how he gets some of his best teachings. And then I briefly mentioned him a little bit earlier, but I do also have John Constantine, someone who should probably be as far away from being a mentor as possible, but literally falls into a situation where he has to become a mentor to a young magic user. Kind of what I was saying with Booster Gold, but ramped up to the max. I think Constantine is someone who would honestly be your most unethical, most unorthodox, probably worst type of teacher you could offer to a young hero, but he's in a situation where he has to do it, and this student just might not take no for an answer. The whole idea, however, would be Constantine potentially training this younger magic user, telling him to not end up like him, don't become someone like me. So perhaps this would be Constantine's way of training a sidekick to be better than himself, to go down a better path than I have. I'm sure a story like that, Constantine would have a tremendous amount of doubts. He'd probably even think halfway through, this is stupid. Why am I even doing this? I'm sure he would even try to push away the sidekick. Leave me alone. I'm not good enough for this. I don't even want to be doing this in the first place. I like the idea of a character in Constantine being someone who would be the farthest thing from ever wanting a sidekick, and bam, he needs to have one now. And then last but not least, kind of a honorable mention, if you will, I do have Red Hood as a mentor, but particularly to someone who is Red X. I think Red Hood and Red X, not just because both names have red in it, but just the idea of both of these characters, they are so perfectly well suited for one another. As if Batman isn't already dark, of course, this is kind of like the dark Batman and the dark Robin. I think it would even be really neat if there was a situation where maybe Damian Wayne didn't want to be the Robin to Batman, but he was more comfortable being a Red X to Red Hood. I think having a student and a master in someone like them two who are willing to do things that maybe Batman and Robin wouldn't do would make for a really interesting story and a really great dynamic between potentially two people, Jason Todd of course, but depending on who Red X is, two people who have been part of the Bat family before and now they're kind of not. Even though Jason Todd is a little more cynical than usual, I still think he himself has something of value to offer a student as well. So there it is, guys, DC characters that I believe deserve sidekicks. Now, there are so many other characters out there that I didn't mention that I do think could utilize a sidekick or deserve to be mentors of some sort. I think there's an argument for every Teen Titan who is now potentially grown up to be an adult. Beast Boy, Starfire, Donna Troy, Wally West Flash. There are so many people who deserve a sidekick of their own. So with that being said, in the comments below, let me know which DC characters I didn't mention that you think deserve to have sidekicks as well. But that's all I have for you on this video, everyone. I hope you all enjoyed it, and until the next time, I will talk to you all very soon.